My name is Jordan Hayes. I'm 34 years old, and until recently, I believed my life was a carefully orchestrated tapestry of controlled chaos and hard-won peace. My penthouse apartment in downtown Seattle offered breathtaking views of Puget Sound, a panorama of glittering water and distant mountains that perfectly mirrored the calm I had finally found after years of living on the knife edge of global conflict. My office, a sleek, minimalist space with multiple monitors displaying lines of code and network schematics, was where I built impenetrable digital fortresses for governments and corporations, safeguarding their most sensitive data from the unseen threats lurking in the dark corners of the internet. I was a phantom in the digital realm, a silent guardian, a master of information warfare. My career as a cybersecurity consultant was demanding, intellectually rigorous, and endlessly challenging. It allowed me to leverage the tactical precision and strategic thinking I'd honed during my decade as a special forces operator, transitioning my unique skill set from physical battlefields to the boundless, invisible expanse of cyberspace. But the true center of my universe wasn't any high-stakes contract or complex algorithm. It was Liam, my son. He was 8 years old, with a mop of unruly brown hair, eyes that sparkled with boundless curiosity, and a laugh that could chase away any shadow. After a painful divorce from Liam's mother, Sarah, 5 years ago, our relationship had become the bedrock of my existence. I have fought tooth and nail for shared custody, navigating the treacherous waters of family court, determined to be a constant, unwavering presence in his life. Liam was my anchor, my reason, the living, breathing testament to a future I was still building, piece by precious piece. Sarah and I had been high school sweethearts, a whirlwind romance that culminated in a rushed marriage and Liam's birth just after I'd returned from my first deployment. We were young, idealistic, and utterly unprepared for the realities of military life and its crushing demands. The deployments, the constant danger, the silent toll of combat that slowly chipped away at the man she merited all, eventually broke us. We drifted apart, two souls adrift in a sea of unspoken resentments and unfulfilled expectations. When I left the service, I carried the scars of war, both visible and invisible, but I also carried the unwavering determination to be a better father than I had been a husband. Liam deserved a stable, loving home, and I was committed to providing it, even if that meant sacrificing parts of myself. We had settled into a comfortable rhythm. Liam spent weekdays with Sarah and weekends, holidays, and extended breaks with me. Our time together was sacred, filled with adventures, quiet conversations, and the simple joy of shared presence. We built Lego castles, explored national parks, and spent countless hours discussing everything from astrophysics to the latest video game strategies. He was my world. Then, David came into the picture. David Sterling. Sarah met him at a charity gala, a glitzy event she helped organize for her interior design firm. He was a real estate mogul, a man whose carefully tailored suits and practiced smile radiated an aura of success and easy charm. Sarah, always drawn to flash and ambition, was quickly swept off her feet. Their courtship was a whirlwind of expensive dinners, private jet trips to exotic locales, and lavish gifts. Within a year, they were married. I had met David a few times during Liam's transitions. He was outwardly polite, almost unctuous, with a patronizing air that grated on my nerves. He had a way of looking at me, a former military man now in tech, as if I were a curiosity, a relic of a past Sarah had fortunately moved beyond. His eyes, though, were what truly unsettled me. They held a cold, calculating glint, a predatory stillness that hinted at something far less benign beneath the polished veneer. My gut, honed by years of reading human intent in life or death situations, screamed a silent warning. He was too smooth, too perfect, too eager to project an image of effortless superiority. I'd seen that kind of carefully constructed facade before, in the eyes of men who prioritize power and control above all else. I didn't trust him, not an inch. But Sarah seemed infatuated, blinded by his wealth and charisma, convinced she'd finally found the stable, prosperous life she'd always craved. For Liam's sake, I held my tongue, burying my suspicions under a polite, detached professionalism, hoping my instincts were wrong, that David was merely an arrogant showman, not something darker. The first crack in my carefully managed piece appeared subtly, a hairline fracture in the perfect image David cultivated. Liam started coming home from Sarah's house, quieter, more withdrawn, his usual effervescence dimmed. He'd complain of stomach aches before school, a nervous flutter in his chest, and his once eager chatter about his week at Sarah's house dwindled to monosyllabic answers. He stopped talking about David. He avoided eye contact when David's name came up. The spark in his eyes, once so bright, was flickering. One Saturday morning, after a particularly silent car ride from Sarah's, Liam sat down at our kitchen island, picked at his pancakes, and finally, his small voice, barely a whisper, confessed. David, he told the whole class about my reading disability, Dad. The words hit me like a physical blow, a sudden, searing pain that flared through my chest. Liam had mild dyslexia, a challenge we were quietly working through with a specialized tutor. It was a sensitive topic for him, something he was self-conscious about, a private struggle that he faced with quiet courage. He did what? I asked, my voice dangerously calm, the words feeling foreign, distant, detached from the sudden inferno of rage that consumed me. Liam's eyes, usually so trusting, filled with unshed tears. He came to my school assembly, and when my teacher called my name for the Student of the Week award, David stood up and told everyone that I only got it because I was learning to overcome my special challenges, and that some kids need a little extra help to keep up with the smart ones. Everyone laughed. Dad, everyone. His small hands clenched into fists, his face a mask of shame and humiliation. He said he was trying to encourage me, but it felt like he was making fun of me. He made fun of you, I stated, my voice flat, devoid of emotion, a dangerous calm settling over me. The rage had cooled, hardened into a terrifying resolve. This wasn't just a misstep or a social gaffe. This was a deliberate act of public humiliation, a calculated blow to a child's fragile self-esteem. David Sterling, the polished real estate mogul, had weaponized my son's vulnerability, using it to display his own supposed magnanimity, his own twisted sense of superiority. He had broken the unspoken code of conduct, not just as a stepfather, but as a human being. He had attacked my son, and in doing so, he had attacked me. In that moment, Liam's shame became my unshakable mission. The casual arrogance, the patronizing smile, the cold eyes. David Sterling was not just an arrogant showman. He was a predator, a man who derived sick pleasure from tearing down others to elevate himself. And he had targeted my son. The special forces operator in me, the part of me that had once dismantled hostile networks and protected vulnerable assets, reawakened with a chilling clarity. This wasn't just about protecting Liam anymore. It was about ensuring that David Sterling would never harm another child, another person, ever again. He had awakened the wolf, and the wolf was about to hunt. My first step was to reassure Liam. I scooped him into a hug, holding him tight, feeling the small tremble in his body. Liam, I said, my voice soft but firm, David was wrong. What he did was cruel and unkind. Your reading ability doesn't make you any less smart, any less amazing. It just means your brain works a little differently. And that's a superpower, not a weakness. And anyone who makes you feel bad about it is wrong. Understand? He nodded, burrowing into my chest, and I felt a fierce, primal protectiveness surge through me. We're going to fix this, I whispered. I promise. The following weeks were a blur of intense, covert activity. My penthouse apartment, once a symbol of my serene professional success, transformed into a clandestine command center. The sleek, minimalist lines of my office gave way to a labyrinth of blinking servers, multiple high-definition monitors displaying a dizzying array of data streams, and secure communication lines humming with encrypted traffic. I installed a separate, dedicated network insulated from my main business operations, a ghost network within a ghost network, untraceable and impregnable. This was no longer just about a client project. This was a personal war, fought with the precision of a surgeon and the ruthlessness of a predator. My cybersecurity firm, Sentinel Aegis, specialized in digital forensics and corporate intelligence for the ultra-wealthy and the hyper-paranoid. I utilized advanced open-source intelligence, OSINT techniques, pulling data from obscure forums, deep web caches, and even darknet markets, cross-referencing information with social engineering profiles I built for David and his known associates. My custom-made tools were capable of deep network infiltration, polymorphic data mining, and behavioral pattern analysis, designed to find the unseen, to expose the hidden. David Sterling, with his vast public persona and sprawling empire, would have a massive digital footprint, a complex tapestry of online interactions, financial transactions, and public records. I intended to unravel every single thread, no matter how deeply buried or meticulously obscured. I started with public records, property deeds, company registrations, past lawsuits, divorces. David's empire seemed legitimate on the surface, a sprawling network of holding companies and investments across various states and even offshore tax havens. But my training had taught me that the most dangerous criminals often hide in plain sight, their illicit activities masked by layers of legitimate seeming enterprises. Predators, especially those with vast wealth, often stash their true nature in the shadows of shell corporations and untraceable accounts. I meticulously cross-referenced names, addresses, and financial transactions with dark web intelligence databases, with whisper networks in the cybersecurity underworld, with old contacts from my military intelligence days who still operated in the gray areas of global finance and information. My contact list from my days in Black Ops was not just impressive. It was a testament to a career spent forging alliances in the shadows, with individuals who operated beyond the confines of conventional law, individuals who understood the language of discretion and the value of information. My investigation was methodical, patient, and utterly ruthless. I employed a full spectrum of passive surveillance techniques. I never directly interacted with David, but I monitored his digital presence with an almost obsessive precision. I scraped his social media posts, not just for content, but analyzing metadata for precise location data, hidden contacts tagged in seemingly innocuous photos, and patterns of communication with seemingly unrelated individuals. I monitored his company's public financial filings, looking for anomalies, for red flags that might indicate illicit activities, for sudden surges in capital flow or unexplained losses in specific subsidiaries. The mental toll was significant. Each revelation about David Sterling felt like a new stab, a confirmation of the insidious evil I'd sensed from the start. I found myself becoming withdrawn, my usual calm demeanor replaced by a simmering intensity. Liam would ask me about my day, and I'd offer vague, reassuring answers, my mind still replaying fragments of encrypted messages or scrutinizing suspicious financial ledgers. I felt a constant tension, a tightening in my chest that wouldn't ease. My nightmares returned, echoes of past deployments mixing with images of David's cold eyes and Liam's tear-stained face. But with each piece of damning evidence, a new resolve hardened within me. This wasn't just about personal vengeance. It was about protecting not just Liam, but countless others who might fall prey to men like David. That knowledge, that profound sense of justice, was what kept me going through the long, sleepless nights. I even delved into his personal life, discreetly interviewing former employees, disgruntled business partners, and even a few of his ex-wives. I crafted elaborate cover stories, carefully framing my questions as due diligence for a potential multi-million-dollar investment David was supposedly courting, or as background research for a fictional business venture looking to acquire one of his minor holdings. Most of them were wary, tight-lipped, their faces etched with a fear that transcended mere professional caution. Many had signed ironclad non-disclosure agreements, but their fear, their palpable relief that someone was finally looking into David Sterling, was clear. Their carefully chosen words, their evasiveness, spoke volumes about a pattern of aggressive business tactics, outright financial fraud, shattered partnerships, and outright ruin left in his wake. One ex-wife, a visibly shaken woman named Eleanor, spoke of David's explosive temper, his vindictive nature, and how he had financially crippled her after their divorce, leaving her with nothing but legal fees and a profound sense of terror. Her story resonated with a chilling familiarity, confirming my deepest suspicions. She even mentioned a particularly nasty incident where David had publicly belittled her professional accomplishments at a charity event, much like he had done to Liam, just to assert his dominance. It was a pattern, a twisted habit of a man who thrived on making others feel small. The first major breakthrough came when I stumbled upon a series of interconnected shell corporations registered in the Cayman Islands, the British Virgin Islands, and Delaware, all funneling money into a single, obscure real estate development fund named Horizon Holdings. This fund, on the surface, appeared legitimate, focusing on luxury residential projects in up-and-coming urban areas. But when I peeled back the layers of obfuscation, using my deep packet inspection tools and custom algorithms, I discovered that Horizon Holdings was consistently overpaying for properties in economically distressed areas, often purchasing them from distressed sellers at artificially inflated prices, only to flip them later at a significant loss. This wasn't standard real estate practice. This was a classic money laundering scheme, a sophisticated wash trade designed to legitimize illicit funds. The losses weren't losses. They were the cost of cleaning dirty money, money flowing from sources far darker than legitimate real estate. My system, a proprietary network analysis tool I'd built myself called Cerberus, highlighted the anomalies with stark red warnings. It correlated the fund's suspicious transactions with the digital footprints of known criminal organizations. Cerberus could identify patterns in seemingly random data, piecing together fragments of information from disparate sources, encrypted messages, anonymous forum posts, even obscure news articles from foreign tabloids, to form a coherent, damning picture. It was like having a digital bloodhound relentlessly tracking the scent of illicit activity. I kept digging, following the digital breadcrumbs, tracing the money back to its source. The trail led me down a rabbit hole of anonymous offshore accounts, encrypted communications on secure, dark web forums, and a dizzying array of complex financial instruments. My forensic analysis tools, which could break down encrypted communication layers used by state-level actors, revealed hidden messages, coded language, and encrypted voice notes. I found evidence of large sums being transferred from these shell corporations to a series of seemingly unrelated accounts in Eastern Europe and Southeast Asia, accounts linked to known criminal syndicates involved in narcotics and, horrifyingly, human trafficking. David Sterling wasn't just a cruel stepfather. He was a key player in an international money laundering network, a sophisticated financial conduit for organized crime, for drug cartels, and for human trafficking rings. His real estate empire was a front, a gleaming facade for a labyrinth of illicit financial transactions. His wealth, his power, his carefully cultivated image, it was all built on a foundation of stolen money, shattered lives, and human misery. The public humiliation of my son was just a minor, disgusting symptom of a far more profound sickness festering beneath the surface of his polished exterior. The sheer scale of his criminal enterprise was breathtaking, hidden in plain sight, shielded by layers of legal complexity and a network of complicit individuals. I worked tirelessly, fueled by a cold, righteous fury that burned steadily, consuming my every waking moment. My sleep was minimal, often just a few hours of restless, dream-haunted oblivion, but my focus was absolute. Every piece of data, every encrypted file, every hidden transaction was meticulously cataloged, cross-referenced, and prepared for presentation. I created a comprehensive digital dossier, a damning indictment of David Sterling's entire operation, complete with network diagrams, financial flowcharts, and encrypted communications logs that proved his direct involvement in every illicit activity. I even managed to find irrefutable evidence of large-scale tax fraud, bribery of local officials to push through questionable zoning changes, and chilling instances of witness intimidation, a side of David Sterling that few dared to challenge, operating with impunity, believing himself untouchable. The depth of his depravity was staggering. Maintaining the facade of civility with Sarah during this period was excruciating. Every time I dropped Liam off or picked him up, I had to feign polite conversation, pretending to be the agreeable ex-husband, the understanding father, all while knowing the monstrous truth about the man she had married. She would often complain about David's long hours or his stressful deals, completely oblivious to the fact that his stress was rooted in international money laundering, organized crime, and potentially even trafficking, not just difficult real estate negotiations. Her blindness, her willing ignorance, was both frustrating and heartbreaking. Part of me wanted to shake her, to scream the truth, but I couldn't risk revealing my hand. Not yet. Not until I had everything, every single piece of evidence locked down, ensuring David Sterling's empire could be brought down with surgical precision, leaving no room for escape, no loophole for his expensive lawyers to exploit. The thought of confronting him too early, only for him to slip away and vanish into the shadows, was unbearable. Justice had to be absolute. The emotional toll of these weeks was heavier than any combat deployment. Back then, the enemy was clear, the objectives defined. Here, the enemy lived in luxury, walked among the innocent, and preyed on the most vulnerable. The lines between right and wrong blurred at times. As I navigated the legal and ethical gray areas of my methods, was I just another vigilante, number? I told myself I was a guardian, using my unique, hard-earned skills to bring a predator to justice through evidence, not just force. The difference, I convinced myself, was in the intention and the outcome. My aim was not chaos, but order restored. My aim was not destruction, but exposure. My aim was justice. This moral tightrope walk was perhaps the most challenging aspect, pushing me to my limits, forcing me to confront the darker impulses within myself, to control them, and to channel them into an unyielding force for good. The confrontation would be public, decisive, and utterly devastating for David Sterling. I wanted him to lose everything he valued most: his reputation, his carefully constructed image, his illicit wealth, and his illusion of impenetrable power. And I wanted Liam to see that justice, though sometimes slow, always finds its way, that bullies, no matter how powerful, eventually face consequences. The opportunity presented itself perfectly. David Sterling was scheduled to give a keynote address at the annual Seattle Business Summit, a high-profile event attended by the city's elite business leaders, influential politicians, and prominent media figures. It was his moment in the spotlight, his chance to solidify his image as a titan of industry, a philanthropic visionary. I secured a press pass through an old contact at a minor tech publication, ensuring I had unhindered access to the media zone, a strategic vantage point. I also discreetly contacted a few investigative journalists I knew and trusted, the kind who lived for exposing corruption, hinting at a major, career-defining story about a prominent local figure, without revealing any specific details, just enough to pique their interest and ensure they'd be present and attentive, ready to capture the unfolding drama. The day of the summit arrived. I dressed impeccably, a sharp, custom-tailored dark gray suit masking the coiled tension that ran through my body like a high-voltage current. Liam was spending the weekend with my parents at their cabin upstate, far from the storm that was about to break, safe and sound. I felt a grim, almost chilling satisfaction as I entered the opulent convention center, the air thick with the scent of ambition, expensive cologne, and a subtle undercurrent of corporate greed. David Sterling's perfectly groomed face beamed from giant screens positioned throughout the grand ballroom, a picture of false confidence, his carefully curated smile a mockery of the truth. His speech began, a predictable parade of empty platitudes about innovation, community building, ethical leadership, and giving back to the less fortunate. His voice booming with practiced sincerity, a performance worthy of an Oscar. The hypocrisy was nauseating, a bitter taste in my mouth. As he reached the climax of his address, preparing to unveil his latest philanthropic initiative, a thinly veiled attempt to launder more money through a newly established charitable foundation, I made my move. I had prepared a custom-designed data packet, a miniature digital bomb containing the full, unredacted dossier on David Sterling, along with a link to a secure, anonymous server where all the raw, forensic evidence was stored. This server was configured with a dead man's switch, a fail-safe mechanism set to automatically release the entire data cache to every major news outlet, international law enforcement agency, and financial regulatory body worldwide if I failed to execute the primary release manually, or if my own systems detected any attempt to compromise the data. There was no going back, no chance of failure. I accessed the convention center's guest Wi-Fi, a notoriously insecure public network, but also a perfect, unsuspecting entry point for my purposes. With a few swift, precise keystrokes, a silent dance across the keyboard that only I could appreciate, I launched the attack. My custom script, a silent, invisible digital predator, infiltrated the central presentation system, piggybacking on David's own privileged network access, using his digital footprint against him. The script bypassed all firewalls, encryption, and intrusion detection systems. A ghost in the machine. It was elegant, efficient, and irreversible. Mid-sentence, as David was extolling the virtues of his integrity and unwavering commitment to transparency, the giant screens behind him flickered violently. His smiling face, so confident just moments before, was replaced by a stark, menacing black background with bold, blood-red text that blared. A collective gasp rippled through the audience. A few nervous chuckles, assuming a technical malfunction. David froze, his practiced smile faltering, his eyes darting frantically towards the screens, a flicker of genuine fear finally breaking through his polished facade. Then, the first image flashed. A blurred but undeniable photo of an offshore bank statement, highlighting a massive illicit transaction in an untraceable currency, followed by another. A complex network diagram of shell corporations, their intricate, nefarious interconnections laid bare, financial flows clearly marked. Then a chilling snippet of an encrypted chat log, showing David's user ID negotiating the acquisition of human assets, a sickeningly clinical term for trafficking vulnerable individuals. The room, once filled with polite applause, erupted into a murmur of disbelief, then outright chaos, a cacophony of gasps, whispers, and rising outrage. David Sterling stammered, his voice cracking. "Why? What is this? A technical glitch? A hack? Someone stop this! This is a malicious attack!" His face, once so composed and arrogant, twisted into a mask of pure terror, his eyes wide and desperate, as his carefully constructed world began to crumble around him, pixel by horrifying pixel. But I was relentless. The presentation continued, a rapid-fire expose of his entire criminal enterprise, each slide a new nail in his coffin. Global money laundering, detailed ledgers of multi-million-dollar wash trading operations, sophisticated tax evasion schemes, and the systematic legitimization of dirty money. Bribery and corruption, scanned email exchanges with compromised public officials, illicit payoffs disguised as consulting fees, and the corrupt manipulation of zoning laws and environmental regulations. Witness intimidation and extortion, transcribed, verified phone calls, chilling messages sent to former associates who dared to question him, and evidence of threats against their families. Organized crime ties, undeniable links to known international syndicates, including documented meetings with notorious figures and shared financial accounts. And then, the most damning of all, a series of pictures. A distraught family from a poverty-stricken village, their faces blurred for protection, with a single chilling caption. Children acquired $50,000 each through David Sterling's Horizon Holdings Development Fund. It was a direct, irrefutable link to the human trafficking operation, the horrifying source of some of his ill-gotten gains, the blood money that built his empire. The horror in the room was palpable, a wave of collective revulsion. The room was in an uproar. Journalists, initially bewildered, were now furiously typing on their laptops, their faces pale with shock. Camera flashes erupted like lightning, capturing David's horrified visage. The murmurs turned into shouts of outrage, a visceral roar of disgust and condemnation. David's personal security team, a group of burly ex-military types, rushed the stage, trying to physically block the screens, but it was too late. The information was already out, streaming to every connected device in the room, mirroring itself on every screen, every news channel that was broadcasting the summit live. My dead man switch had also activated, ensuring global dissemination across every platform, every intelligence agency, every major news syndicate. There was no stopping it. David Sterling's reign of terror was over. As the police, who had discreetly been positioned around the venue at my anonymous tip, moved in to apprehend David Sterling, he spotted me in the media crowd, a dark, silent figure observing the chaos. Our eyes met across the tumultuous room. His face, once so arrogantly dismissive, was now contorted with a raw, impotent rage, a hatred so profound it burned in his eyes like twin infernos. He lunged, attempting to break free from the officers, screaming my name. A strangled, furious roar. "Hayes, you monster! I'll make you regret this!" I simply met his gaze, a cold, unyielding satisfaction settling in my chest, replacing the years of suppressed rage. I didn't flinch. I had just dismantled his entire life, exposed him for the monster he was, and ensured that he would pay for every single crime. Oh, I know exactly who I'm dealing with, I thought, a grim, private smile touching my lips. And you, David, now know who I am. Some men, when their families are threatened, remember what they were trained to do in places that don't exist on any map. I had taught him who I really was, and the lesson was etched into his screaming, defeated face. The aftermath was a blur of flashing lights, relentless media attention, and a profound sense of exhaustion that settled into my bones. David Sterling's empire collapsed like a house of cards. His assets were frozen worldwide, his businesses seized by federal authorities, and his meticulously crafted reputation utterly destroyed, replaced by headlines screaming of his heinous crimes. He faced a mountain of charges, from international money laundering and massive tax fraud to racketeering, bribery, and complicity in human trafficking. The news cycle was dominated by the fall of David Sterling for weeks, his carefully cultivated image replaced by the stark, undeniable truth of his depravity. The investigation spread globally, leading to arrests of his co-conspirators in multiple countries, unraveling layers of corruption that had long plagued various industries. The sheer scale of his network and the vast sums of money involved stunned financial analysts and law enforcement alike. It became clear that David Sterling was just one visible head of a much larger, insidious hydra. The ensuing legal proceedings were lengthy and complex. David Sterling, despite his initial bluster, quickly found himself abandoned by his former powerful allies. His high-priced lawyers struggled against the mountain of irrefutable digital evidence I had compiled. The prosecution, spearheaded by a brilliant and tenacious U.S. attorney, built an airtight case. Testimony from former employees, now protected witnesses, corroborated the financial documents and encrypted communications. The victims of his human trafficking network, though their identities were fiercely protected, provided haunting accounts that brought the brutal reality of his crimes to the forefront. The trial was a media circus, but beneath the sensationalism, justice was grinding forward. David Sterling was ultimately convicted on all major counts, facing a sentence that would ensure he would spend the rest of his miserable life behind bars, stripped of everything he had held dear. Sarah was, predictably, devastated. She was initially in furious denial, screaming at me over the phone, accusing me of ruining her life, of fabricating evidence, of being consumed by petty jealousy. Her initial reaction was pure self-preservation, a desperate attempt to cling to the illusion she had bought into. Then, as the irrefutable evidence mounted, as she faced her own legal scrutiny regarding her association with David's illicit funds, though she was ultimately cleared of direct involvement due to overwhelming evidence of her sheer naivete and blind trust, she collapsed into a profound shame and betrayal. She too became a subject of public scrutiny, her blindness questioned, her complicity in David's lavish lifestyle examined. It was a brutal awakening for her, realizing the true cost of her ambition and her willingness to ignore the warning signs. She ultimately filed for divorce, her second marriage ending in public humiliation and financial ruin, leaving her stripped of the glamour and wealth she had so desperately chased. Our communication became strained, a landscape of raw nerves and lingering resentments, but focused entirely on Liam's well-being. She eventually sought therapy, a small but significant step towards understanding the depth of her own complicity, even if it was born of ignorance. My personal life became public property, but my reputation for integrity and my pivotal role in exposing David Sterling eventually garnered unexpected respect and admiration, especially within the intelligence and cybersecurity communities. I became a reluctant hero, a ghost stepping into the light, not seeking recognition, but finding it. I accepted a few high-profile interviews, carefully controlling the narrative, focusing on the victims and the importance of digital vigilance rather than personal glory. I spoke about the insidious nature of cybercrime, how it facilitates real-world suffering, and the imperative for ethical hacking to counteract it. My professional life at Sentinel Aegis pivoted dramatically. We now specialize almost exclusively in combating financial fraud and cybercrime linked to organized criminal enterprises. I leveraged our expertise to dismantle the digital infrastructure of cartels, trafficking rings, and terrorist organizations. Working directly with federal agencies like the FBI, Homeland Security, and international bodies like Interpol, my team grew, attracting some of the brightest minds in cybersecurity, individuals driven by a similar sense of purpose. We developed new tools, pioneered new investigative methodologies, and became a leading force in tracking and disrupting illicit financial flows across the dark web. I frequently speak at conferences, raising awareness, advocating for stronger legislation, and training new generations of cyber investigators, instilling in them not just technical skills, but also a deep ethical commitment to using their abilities for good, for justice, for protecting the vulnerable. I found a purpose far greater than mere profit, a mission that resonated with the deepest core of my being, fulfilling the desire to serve that had initially drawn me to special forces. The sense of accomplishment in shutting down a network that was exploiting children or dismantling a cartel's financial lifeline was immeasurable, far surpassing any financial reward. My focus, however, remained squarely on Liam. The public spectacle, though necessary for justice, was undeniably difficult for an 8-year-old. I shielded him as best I could from the incessant media frenzy, limiting his exposure, turning off the television when news segments about David came on. I explained the situation to him in terms he could understand, tailored to his age and emotional capacity. David was a very bad man, Liam. He did terrible things and he hurt a lot of people. He hurt you that day at school, and that was unforgivable. But he can't hurt you anymore. He can't hurt anyone else because he's gone, and he's facing justice for all his bad choices. Liam was confused, sometimes angry, sometimes sad. He'd seen the news, heard the whispers at school, and the sudden, dramatic disappearance of David from his life left a void, even if it was a toxic one. He'd ask questions, innocent but piercing, like, why did he do that, Dad? Was I not smart enough? It was in these moments that my resolve was truly tested. I had to reassure him, patiently, repeatedly, that none of this was his fault, that he was more than enough, that David's cruelty stemmed from his own brokenness, not Liam's vulnerabilities. But slowly, with the consistent help of a compassionate child therapist who specialized in childhood trauma, and with my unwavering presence, he began to heal. The therapist, Dr. Evelyn Reed, was invaluable, helping Liam process the betrayal and the public humiliation, giving him tools to express his feelings and validating his complex emotions. He started to understand that David's actions were not a reflection of his own worth. He learned that what David said at school was a lie, a cruel attempt to diminish him, and that his true strength lay in his resilience, his kindness, and his incredible mind, which simply processed information differently, a gift, not a burden. He found his voice, not just in speaking about his feelings, but in advocating for himself, understanding his dyslexia was a part of him, but not all of him. Our bond deepened profoundly in the wake of the storm. I purchased a larger house in a quieter, tree-lined neighborhood outside the city, a place with a big yard where Liam could play and explore, away from the constant buzz and scrutiny that had enveloped our previous life. It was a place for healing, for rebuilding, for new memories. We spent more time together than ever, filling our days with laughter, learning, and the simple, profound joy of being a family. Just the two of us. I taught him to cook, to ride his bike without training wheels, to navigate a compass in the nearby forest trails. I found immense satisfaction in teaching him to code, seeing the spark of recognition in his eyes as he grasped complex logical concepts, understanding that his unique brain was truly a superpower, a different kind of strength that he was learning to harness. He learned not to fear the unseen, but to understand it, to master it. Years later, the scars of the past remain, a subtle, almost invisible reminder of the darkness I faced and conquered. But they are also a testament to resilience, to the unyielding power of a father's love, and to the profound truth that justice, though sometimes slow, always finds its way. Liam is a thriving teenager now, confident, compassionate, and brilliant. He no longer talks about his dyslexia with shame, but with pride, acknowledging it as a unique part of who he is, a catalyst for his out-of-the-box thinking. He's excelling in school, showing a particular aptitude for complex problem solving and ethical reasoning. He's considering a career in ethical hacking or digital forensics, eager to follow in my footsteps, to use his skills to protect, to serve, to make the world a safer place, not for personal gain, but for genuine impact. He even volunteers at a local community center, teaching younger kids basic coding skills, inspiring them with his own story of overcoming challenges. My life is no longer about meticulous control or predictable precision. It's about quiet moments of shared joy, about spontaneous laughter, about the profound satisfaction of knowing that I taught a monster who I really was, and in doing so, I protected my son and contributed to a world where such monsters find no refuge. It's about building a future defined not by the bitterness of betrayal, but by the strength of unwavering love and the unwavering pursuit of justice. The greatest battles, I learned, are often fought not with weapons and brute force, but with intelligence, precision, and an unshakable moral compass. And the greatest victory is not just winning, but ensuring that those you love are safe, truly safe, from the shadows of the world, and that their innocence remains protected, allowing them to flourish into the remarkable individuals they are meant to be. My story isn't just about revenge or about a father protecting his son. It's about the unexpected battles life throws at you and the profound choices you make when faced with them. It's about how even in the darkest corners of human depravity, there can be a fierce, unyielding light of protection, a chance for justice, and the purest form of love to emerge. It's about finding strength in vulnerability, purpose in pain, and a future built on integrity and unwavering love. It's about recognizing that sometimes the greatest blessings are found not where you expect them, but where you least imagine, emerging from the ashes of betrayal. It's a testament to the fact that true power lies not in wealth or status, but in courage, conviction, and the unwavering commitment to do what is right, no matter the cost. If you've ever had to stand up for someone you love, if you've been betrayed by someone you trusted, or if you found your true purpose in the most unexpected of circumstances, share your story in the comments below. Let's build a community where resilience, compassion, and the power of chosen family are celebrated. If my story resonated with you, if it gave you hope, please hit that like button, subscribe for more real-life narratives about overcoming adversity, and share it with someone who might need to hear that even in the darkest times, light can always be found. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, sometimes the hardest choices lead to the most necessary growth, and the most challenging battles lead to the most profound victories.